Before we get started, for those that don't know, if you ask somebody to move, please have your place packed up before they get there. That is annoying as hell when you show up thinking you're going to help somebody move some boxes of furniture and you have to go into their drawers and start packing stuff up. This is all things that could have been done that Robyn's lazy ass could have done prior to the sister wives showing up, and she sat there on her behind and let these folks show up to her house and expected them to pack her place up so that they could move 5 hours away to her new home and location. This is what the first element and the first notation that you had, or first indication that you had, that she is going to be Queen Robyn and not just another one of the sister wives. Back to the show. Let's face it, we all hear bloody lies. We all see deception with our own eyes. We are neither dumb nor blind. We just don't have the courage to speak our minds. Malal Benzadi. The greatest students of humanity are people who have a significant amount of empathy, like they just feel what other people feel. They understand people's feelings. The other great students of humanity are psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists. Part of the reason why they are the greatest students of humanity and how people act and behavior is because in order for them not to stick out or stand out, or for them to blend in with normal society, they have to understand when to laugh, when to cry, when to show emotion, what emotions they should be showing based on what happened. What I see with Robyn, I know there's a lot of folks who are going to come out and say, oh, she's a narcissist, and it's clear she's a narcissist, possibly a sociopath. But at the end of the day, I won't even give her the pop psychology label of calling her those things. We'll just assume that she's a very selfish person. And when you're dealing with somebody like that, at the end of the day, what you have to understand is there's very little you're going to do to really get into the mindset or the feelings of what these people are presenting, because the presentation that they're making isn't genuine. She sits there and cries at the drop of a hat, partially because I think this is how she grew up. And this is how she learned to deal with people. This is how she learned to garner favor with people and get people's trust, because she seems so open and so vulnerable. Now, the first instance that really showed a red flag for me was, especially with dealing with Robyn, there were a lot of red flags kind of going on with some of the ladies, what the ladies were saying and their intuitions. But the one concrete red flag I can look at that I say that Robyn really started to reveal who she was and what she was about, was actually when Christine was sitting there talking about when Cody had proposed to Robyn and they sealed the engagement with a kiss, and she found out about it like a month later. And she said she was very hurt and she was very dismayed because she felt as though Cody was cheating. If you look at their faces, they were pissed that she was even talking about it and that she even referred to it. Then Robyn took the position that she too was tremendously hurt, and she was so upset because Christine had been hurt and it hurt her. And this is one of the things that you have to look at when you're dealing with people of this nature, because narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, people who are self-centered, will always make your problem their problem. When you have an issue, you have difficulty, you have a problem, all of a sudden, they don't see the problem, and this is one of the strong indicators, they don't see the problem from the respect of how it affects you. Rather, they turn the problem and churn the problem and manipulate the problem to somehow it affects them. All of a sudden, what she did with Cody, her kissing Cody, and let's be honest, they went a lot further than kissing, if we're going to keep it a buck, because dude was driving 5 hours away, not for no hugs and no kisses. I'm sorry, but whatever. We'll take it from what they said. Christine was upset that this had occurred. She felt betrayed. Robyn, instead of looking at Christine and saying, I understand your pain and I am sorry for what I did to you. I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sorry that you were affected that way. My intention was not to disrespect you or disrespect the other ladies or disrespect your families. I simply went along with what Cody was doing. I thought it was okay because he was doing it, and I thought it was something that you guys had worked out. That's my fault. I take responsibility for it. Instead of her doing that, she never apologized for kissing Cody or having that interaction with Cody. Cody never apologized for that interaction. Instead, Christine said she was hurt by what happened, and Robyn said that I'm hurt that you hurt, and that you got hurt, and that this hurt your feelings. And she turned all attention back onto herself. And this is one of the things that you have to be careful with when you're dealing with narcissists, sociopaths, self-centered people, is that 9 times out of 10, they will always make the problems about them. That when you talk to them and you open up to them and you tell them your issues and your problems, they aren't listening to you to try to help you solve your problems, help you get through your issues, help you to address anything that's going on in your life. They're listening because they want to use the information they gather as a tool to manipulate you at some later point. So we saw that where Christine said something with regard to, I feel like them kissing is cheating. Then later, if you notice, Cody was talking about moving Robyn from where she was living up to Lehigh in Utah into the big house. And Robyn, who doesn't want to live in the big house and has never lived with the sister wives, is one house and one unit, said, oh, well, I don't want to live with him because that would be disrespectful because we're not married, duh. But you weren't married when you were hooking up with him either. So now all of a sudden you have all this respect. No, what she did was she took Christine's words and she refocused them and used them back again. She used them later. And that's a perfect example of how these types of people work and they operate. Now, the second big example for me was Christine had revealed, and I think to Cody's dismay and to Cody's displeasure, she had revealed that she had had a previous miscarriage. And this miscarriage was pretty serious because she started to hemorrhage, she lost consciousness, and it's a pretty big deal on top of losing a baby. This is a pretty big deal. So she was actually scared because of her age. She would be a high-risk pregnancy just because of her age. But then you throw on top of it that she's had a miscarriage, a previous history of miscarriages. That creates even more risk for her. And that shines a bad light on Cody because me as a man, I understand why Cody was pissed and he was angry that she brought it up. Because it's a bad look that your wife, your pregnant wife, who has had miscarriages and has a high-risk pregnancy because of her age and because of her history, medical history, and you're taking your ass on the road for 5 hours away so you could go see your girlfriend. Bad look, bruh. Bad look. And this is part of the reason why when she was saying that, he had such an angry scowl on his face when she started talking about it because he understands what I understand. And that also kind of goes into the idea that when Cody does this show, you can tell from the way he's acting and the way he's talking, the way he's trying to be jovial, that Cody genuinely thought that this was his show. He thought this was his opportunity. And I'm sure that the way he presented the show and the idea of doing the show to Robyn was, hey, I got this new show coming out on TLC. Would you like to co-star on it? And of course, Robyn, an actress and a person who is kind of self-centered, wants to be on that show. Now, when we talk about the resistance from the wives, there was, like in the previous episode, Christine had talked about Cody leaving and leaving the family, which again, the miscarriages and the high risk of a pregnancy gives even greater weight to the idea that she didn't want Cody leaving and didn't want Cody abandoning the family. But there was also a time when Meri, during the same confessional, had said that she didn't want this, that she herself was considering leaving the family, and the only thing keeping her in the family was her daughter and the fact that she didn't want Mariah to grow up in a broken home where, her and her husband and Mariah's father are no longer together. So she didn't want to break up the family. So from that respect, Meri at that point was looking at the big picture, which is ironic because Robyn was introduced to the family at the behest of Meri. Meri's the one that set this whole thing up. And then because things were moving the way they were, and then Meri wasn't necessarily getting out of her relationship with Robyn the things that she wanted, she was becoming frustrated with the marriage or the potential marriage, the engagement, and the way Cody was interacting with Robyn. I think that the wives could have had a greater impact with their discomfort and voicing their displeasure with Cody growing the family and the way he was growing the family and the person he selected if they all would have been firing off at the same time. And this is my imagination of how I think things went. Meri would get frustrated about Robyn, and Janelle would be there to say, no, it's fine, we're just growing a family, and everybody's upset. And of course, Cody's all in, so he's going to say, this is something that God put on us, and we got to try to adhere to it. It's just natural that you would be upset, but it's going to be okay. Remember before this happened, and bop, 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 and try to calm her down that way. Then, once Meri gets calm, Christine starts to fire off and say that this isn't fair. I feel uncomfortable with this, and because Christine and Meri at the time had a stressed or fractured relationship between the two of them, when Christine starts to come up and starts to voice her opinion about what's going on, all of a sudden Meri doesn't like it, and oh, Christine, you just being soft and you need to take it easy, everything will be fine. And they never fired off at the same time, because I think that if two of his three wives at the time would have came out and said, Cody, this isn't appropriate and we are thinking about leaving, that might have been enough to slow Cody down. Maybe, maybe not, because Cody was all in, and we'll get into why Cody was all in a moment. Because the family was already becoming fractured and disjointed, they weren't a united front, and they weren't approaching Cody and holding Cody accountable as a united front. Cody was able to say and push through a lot of things moving forward. Cody was determined that he was going to marry Robyn and be with Robyn, and there was nobody or nothing that was going to stop him from making that happen. And then if they ever did come out and say, hey, I don't think that this is a good idea, he could turn right around and say, hey, this is part of our religion. Hey, this is what you signed up for. Hey, I don't understand why you're mad, and turn all that back around onto them and use the doctrinations of the church, use their belief systems, use previous agreements, use their other situations against them. And that was part of his power in this situation. When we talk about Robyn and her power over Cody, now I could say that, you know, Robyn is of the world and she's been in the world, and these other women seem like they might be a little more sheltered, and, you know, because they were kind of covered in their faith. And so they might not be as expressive in a physical sense or as open as Robyn may be. Open and willing to not only try things, but do things. So Cody very well may have had a new experience when it came to his time with Robyn. But when you, like I said before, certain people, especially people who are self-centered, possibly narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, these people are students of humanity. And part of that understanding that they have in how people behave, not only do they write down and have a mental note that when certain things happen, the reactions and emotions that they should have, what emotions are appropriate. They don't necessarily genuinely feel the emotion, but they understand that certain emotions and certain displays of emotion are appropriate at certain times, and certain emotions are expected at certain times. So if, like the dog, something happens to the dog, the cat gets lost, the dog run off, they're expected to cry, so that's what they do. And they display that emotion almost on cue. Now, when they do that, and this is part of the trick of the trade, this is part of the first step of manipulation. When they do that, it makes the person who is seeing this and the person they're involved with feel like the person they're dealing with is making themselves vulnerable. And this is where Cody comes back and says, oh, you know, when she first came into the family, she was so open and so vulnerable with all you guys, but you guys basically turned your back on her. And I think part of the reason why they put up walls is because deep down, they went with their instincts to understand that she wasn't being genuine with her vulnerability. And with Robyn being the person that she is, or at least the person that she's coming off to be, it seems as though she understands the only person she really has to fool in this situation is Cody. So listening to Cody, talking to Cody, and understanding humanity and understanding what buttons to push and what she needs to say and what she needs to do, she does that with Cody. Then she goes back and she did the same thing, and this is my speculation. I think she did the same thing with Meri. When she first started talking to Meri, she told Meri what Meri needed to hear. She understood that, oh, Meri might be having trouble with Janelle and Christine, and she might feel like an outsider. So if I come off as though I'm her best friend and we're going to have this bond and this relationship and we're going to be tight as, tight can be, tight as a drum together, the two of us together, two peas in a pod, or however you want to phrase it, it makes Meri feel more comfortable. And then she says, come on into the family. And then here's my husband, here's the kids, here's the other wives. Once she accomplishes that goal, she no longer needs Meri. And because she wasn't actually vulnerable with Meri, she wasn't tied to Meri, she didn't have any connection with Meri, it's easy for her to move on from Meri and move on to her next goal. And that's what we see, I think, with a lot of what happens with Robyn. Robyn cries, like I said, because it's something that she learned when she was younger. And it also holds another secret. When you start crying, it makes it seem as though you're being weak or vulnerable. And nobody likes to hurt somebody who's weak and vulnerable. Most people are genuinely good folks. They don't want to hurt people, and they want to protect people who are weaker than them or vulnerable. So you start to talk to them, you start to deal with them, and you start to become protective of that person. The problem is they aren't genuinely being vulnerable, so they're not vulnerable at all. And when they become vulnerable with you, you feel like you have to reciprocate that, so you become vulnerable with them. And because you're vulnerable with them, you think that your relationship is a lot tighter and you guys are a lot closer than you actually are. Now, this is one of the problems with dealing with narcissists and sociopaths, psychopaths, and people who are extremely self-centered that I try to avoid in my personal life, because when you're dealing with these kinds of people, you have to stay extra guarded about what you reveal to them and what you say to them, how much you let them in. Because like I said, they're not listening to you to solve your problems or help you. They're listening to you to try to get some kind of advantage or get some kind of edge on the situation. So you will spend most of your time with them always kind of watching out, keeping one eye on them, and nobody should have to live like that. It's too stressful, it's too demanding, and it's just no way to live, and you can never truly be open with them because they just don't feel the feelings and reciprocation towards you. So you're just better off not dealing with them. And this also goes back to the first thing. I think that not only did the sister wives have their hesitation with dealing with Robyn, but I think part of her problem with her connection with the audience members is they picked up on the fact that Robyn is one of two things, especially the way she cries all the time. Either she is extremely weak and she's fragile to the point of almost being committed, because if you look at her, she'll start crying, or she's extremely manipulative. And I don't think anybody made the mistake of thinking that Robyn was weak. So she comes off as being manipulative from the first, or maybe up to I'm on episode 3 right now. And by episode 3, she's already starting to come off as extremely manipulative. And that, I think, is where she struggles with a lot of the audience and the comments and how people see her. That's my take. I'm James. This has been my take on reality, and I'm out. 'Cause I've been living life.